Dr. Sarah Chan never expected her life to change forever on a rainy Tuesday morning in the Amazon rainforest. She had been working as a wildlife researcher for 8 years, studying rare bird species deep in the jungle. Her small research camp was simple but comfortable, with just a few tents and basic equipment for her work. That morning, Sarah woke to the sound of heavy rain hitting her tent. She grabbed her waterproof jacket and stepped outside to check her bird traps. The forest was alive with sounds: monkeys calling from the trees, colorful parrots chattering, and the constant drip of rainwater falling from the thick canopy above. As she walked along the muddy path toward her research area, something caught her eye. There, partially hidden under a large fallen leaf, was what looked like a broken eggshell. But this wasn't like any bird egg she had ever seen. The shell pieces were thick, almost leathery, and had a strange greenish color with dark spots. Sarah knelt down carefully and moved the leaf aside. Her heart started beating faster when she saw what was underneath. A small creature, no bigger than her fist, was lying very still. At first, she thought it might be dead. The little animal had dark green scales that shimmered in the dim forest light, tiny claws, and what looked like small wing buds on its back. She had never seen anything like it in all her years of research. Sarah knew every animal species that lived in this part of the Amazon, but this creature was completely unknown to her. It looked almost like a baby dragon from the fairy tales she read as a child, but that was impossible. Dragons weren't real. Very gently, Sarah reached out and touched the small creature. It was warm and she could feel it breathing. Suddenly, its eyes opened. They were the most beautiful golden color, like tiny suns. The creature looked directly at her and made a soft chirping sound, almost like a baby bird asking for food. Sarah's scientific mind was racing. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. A new species, possibly even a new type of animal altogether. But her heart was also touched by how helpless and small the creature looked. It was clearly just a baby, probably only hours old. She carefully picked up the little animal, surprised by how easily it fit in her hands. It didn't try to bite or scratch her. Instead, it seemed to relax in her warm palms and made that soft chirping sound again. Sarah could feel its tiny heart beating rapidly against her fingers. Back at her camp, Sarah set up a small box with soft cloths to make a temporary home for the creature. She wasn't sure what it ate, but she tried offering it small pieces of fruit and insects. The little animal showed interest in the insects, using its tiny claws to grab them and eat them quickly. Over the next few hours, Sarah watched the creature carefully. It moved with surprising grace for something so young, and its golden eyes seemed very intelligent. When she moved around the camp, its head would follow her movements. When she spoke softly to it, the creature would tilt its head as if trying to understand her words. That evening, Sarah sat at her laptop trying to research what kind of animal she had found. She looked through hundreds of pictures and articles about rare reptiles, birds, and mammals from South America. Nothing even came close to what she had discovered. The closest thing she could find were some very old legends and stories from local indigenous tribes about small dragon-like creatures that lived deep in the forest. As night fell, the temperature in the jungle dropped significantly. Sarah noticed that the little creature was shivering in its box. She felt sorry for it, being separated from its mother and family so young. Without really thinking about it, she gently lifted the creature from the box. The moment she held it against her chest, the shivering stopped. The tiny animal seemed to relax completely, making soft, content sounds. Its small claws gently gripped her shirt, but not enough to hurt her. Sarah could feel the warmth of its small body against her. She had planned to put the creature back in the box for the night, but it was clearly much happier staying close to her. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She carefully carried the little animal to her sleeping bag and lay down with it curled up against her chest. The creature immediately settled in, as if this was exactly where it belonged. Sarah could feel its breathing slow down as it fell asleep, and its tiny claws relaxed their grip on her shirt. She had never felt such a strong protective instinct toward any animal she had studied. As Sarah lay in the dark jungle night, listening to the sounds of the forest around her, she thought about what she should do next. Scientifically, she knew she should contact other researchers, maybe even a zoo or university that could properly study this new species. But, looking down at the peaceful little creature sleeping on her chest, she felt a strong reluctance to hand it over to strangers who might not care for it the way she did. The next morning, Sarah woke to find the creature still curled up against her, but now it was noticeably larger than it had been the day before. Its wing buds seemed more developed, and its scales had a brighter shine to them. This was extraordinary growth for just one day. When the creature woke up, it looked at Sarah with those golden eyes and made happy chirping sounds. It was clearly bonding with her as if she were its mother. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and worry. What was this creature going to grow into? She spent the morning taking careful measurements and photos of the little animal. Its growth rate was unlike anything she had ever seen in nature. At this pace, it could be much larger within just a few weeks. That afternoon, while Sarah was working on her regular bird research, she heard unusual sounds coming from the direction of her camp. It sounded like other animals moving around, possibly large ones. When she quietly approached her camp, she saw something that made her blood run cold. 3 large, dark shapes were moving around her tent area. At first, she thought they might be jaguars or large snakes, but, as she got closer, she realized these were creatures similar to the baby she had found, but much, much larger. They were each about the size of a full-grown lion, with the same dark green scales and golden eyes, but their claws were as long as kitchen knives and their teeth were sharp and dangerous-looking. The large creatures were clearly searching for something, sniffing around her camp and making low, rumbling sounds. Sarah's heart was pounding as she realized they were probably looking for the baby. These must be its family. Sarah looked down at the small creature she was carrying in a sling across her chest. It had been quiet all day, but now it started making excited chirping sounds and trying to climb up toward her shoulder. It had obviously sensed its family nearby. The 3 large creatures suddenly stopped moving and turned in Sarah's direction. They had heard the baby's calls. Their golden eyes locked onto her, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. These were clearly predators, and she was standing between them and their young. One of the large creatures, probably the mother, took a step toward Sarah and made a deep, threatening sound that was unlike anything she had ever heard. It was like a cross between a lion's roar and an eagle's screech. The sound made the hair on Sarah's arms stand up, and every instinct told her to run. But Sarah knew that running would be pointless. These creatures looked fast and powerful. Instead, she did something that surprised even herself. She carefully lifted the baby creature from her sling and held it out toward the approaching adults. The baby immediately started making louder chirping sounds and stretching its little claws toward its family. The large creatures stopped their threatening postures and focused completely on their young. The mother creature approached slowly, her golden eyes moving between Sarah and the baby. Sarah's hands were shaking as she held the little creature. She knew this was probably goodbye. These were wild animals, and the baby belonged with its family, not with her. Even though she had grown attached to it in just one day, she knew she had to let it go. But what happened next would change everything Sarah thought she knew about these mysterious creatures. Instead of simply taking the baby and leaving, the mother creature did something completely unexpected. She looked directly into Sarah's eyes and made a soft, gentle sound, almost like she was trying to communicate with her. The baby creature looked back and forth between Sarah and its mother, making excited chirping sounds. It seemed like it was trying to tell its mother something about Sarah, something important. Sarah stood perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe, as the 3 large creatures surrounded her. But, instead of attacking, they seemed to be studying her, as if trying to decide something important. The mother creature came so close that Sarah could feel her warm breath and see the intelligence in her golden eyes. What happened in those next few moments would begin a relationship unlike anything that had ever been documented between humans and wild animals, setting Sarah on a path that would challenge everything science thought it knew about the natural world. The mother creature gently touched Sarah's hand with her snout, being careful not to hurt her with those sharp teeth. Her touch was surprisingly gentle, and Sarah felt a warmth that seemed to spread up her arm. It was as if the creature was somehow reading her intentions, understanding that Sarah had cared for her baby. After several tense minutes, the mother creature stepped back and made a series of soft sounds to the other two adults. They seemed to be having some kind of conversation, using different tones and sounds that Sarah had never heard from any animal before. The baby in Sarah's arms was chirping excitedly, as if it was part of the discussion. Then, something extraordinary happened. The mother creature approached Sarah again and very gently took the baby in her mouth, being incredibly careful with her sharp teeth. But, instead of flying away with her young, she placed the baby back in Sarah's arms. The baby immediately settled in against Sarah's chest, making happy sounds. The mother looked at Sarah with those intelligent golden eyes and made a sound that seemed almost like approval. The other two creatures also approached, no longer threatening, and touched Sarah gently with their snouts. It was like they were accepting her as part of their family. Over the next few days, the most amazing thing happened. The adult creatures didn't take their baby away. Instead, they seemed to adopt Sarah as an honorary member of their group. They would appear near her camp every morning and evening, always watching over both Sarah and the baby with protective care. Sarah learned that these creatures were highly intelligent, much more than any animal she had ever studied. They seemed to understand that she was different from other humans, that she genuinely cared for their young. The baby continued to sleep with Sarah every night, curled up against her chest, growing larger and stronger each day. During the day, the adult creatures would hunt in the forest while Sarah continued her research work. The baby stayed with her, following her around like a loyal puppy. Sarah started calling the little creature Luna because of those beautiful golden eyes that reminded her of moonlight. Luna was learning fast. She could now climb trees with amazing agility, and her wing buds were developing into real wings. She would practice gliding short distances, always landing near Sarah with excited chirping sounds, as if showing off her new abilities. The relationship with Luna's family brought unexpected challenges for Sarah. She realized she couldn't continue her research as planned. Having these creatures around meant she had to be incredibly careful about outside contact. She knew that if other people discovered these animals, it could be dangerous for them. Sarah made a difficult decision. She contacted her research supervisor and told him she was extending her stay in the Amazon to study a new bird species she had discovered. She didn't mention the truth about Luna and her family. She knew that scientists, government officials, and possibly even hunters would want to capture these creatures if they knew about them. Meanwhile, Luna was growing at an incredible rate. After just 2 weeks, she was already the size of a small dog, with beautiful wings that sparkled in the sunlight. Her scales had developed intricate patterns, and her golden eyes had become even more expressive. The adult creatures began including Luna in their hunting trips, but she would always return to Sarah's camp by evening. It was clear that Luna considered Sarah to be her second mother. The little creature would bring Sarah gifts, beautiful stones, unusual flowers, and sometimes even small animals she had caught. Sarah started keeping a detailed journal of everything she observed about these creatures. She documented their intelligence, their complex family relationships, and their amazing abilities. Luna could now fly short distances, and her claws had grown strong enough to climb the tallest trees in the forest. One evening, as Sarah sat by her small campfire with Luna curled up beside her, something dangerous happened. She heard the sound of helicopters in the distance, getting closer to her camp. Her heart started racing as she realized what this might mean. Earlier that week, Sarah had noticed signs that other people had been in the area. She had found boot prints near a stream and pieces of equipment that didn't belong to her research project. Someone else was in the forest, and they were looking for something. The helicopter sounds got louder, and Sarah could see lights moving through the trees. Luna's family must have heard the noise too, because suddenly, all 3 adult creatures appeared at her camp. They looked agitated and kept making warning sounds. Luna pressed closer to Sarah, clearly frightened by the loud noises. Her golden eyes were wide with fear, and she was making distressed chirping sounds. The adult creatures were moving restlessly, obviously torn between staying to protect their young and fleeing to safety. Sarah made a quick decision. She gathered her most important research notes and stuffed them into a waterproof bag. Then, she picked up Luna and followed the adult creatures deeper into the forest, away from the approaching helicopters. They moved through the thick jungle in the dark, with the adult creatures leading the way. Sarah was amazed by how quietly such large animals could move through the dense vegetation. Luna stayed calm in Sarah's arms, trusting her completely even in this frightening situation. After what felt like hours of walking, they reached a hidden cave deep in the forest. The adult creatures led Sarah inside, and she realized this must be their home. The cave was larger than she had expected, with several chambers and a small underground stream running through it. Inside the cave, Sarah discovered something that took her breath away. There were paintings on the walls, created by these creatures. The paintings showed their history, their relationships with each other, and, surprisingly, images of humans who had lived peacefully alongside them in the past. Sarah realized that these creatures had been living in the Amazon for thousands of years, much longer than scientists believed any large animals could survive in this region. The paintings told the story of their ancestors, who had once lived openly in the forest before humans with guns and machines arrived. The most surprising painting showed a human woman caring for young creatures, just like Sarah was doing with Luna. It seemed that there had been peaceful relationships between humans and these amazing animals in the distant past. As they spent the night in the cave, Sarah learned more about Luna's family. The mother creature, who Sarah started thinking of as Arya, was clearly the leader of the group. The other two creatures were Arya's mate and her grown son from a previous year. Luna fell asleep curled up against Sarah, just as she had done every night since they first met. But, now, surrounded by Luna's family in their ancient home, Sarah felt like she truly understood how special this relationship was. The next morning, Arya approached Sarah and made gentle sounds while looking toward the cave entrance. Sarah understood that Arya was asking if it was safe to return to the forest. The helicopter sounds had stopped during the night, and the forest seemed quiet again. But, when they cautiously returned to Sarah's camp, they discovered that someone had been there. Her tent had been searched, and several pieces of her research equipment were missing. Worst of all, there were fresh tire tracks and boot prints everywhere. Sarah felt a chill of fear as she realized that whoever had been here was specifically looking for signs of unusual animals. They had taken her camera equipment and some of her research notes. If these people analyzed what they had found, they might figure out that Sarah had discovered something extraordinary. That evening, as Sarah sat with Luna and watched the little creature practice flying around the campsite, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She couldn't continue to live a double life, pretending to study birds while actually protecting these amazing creatures. Sarah realized that she had to choose between her scientific career and protecting Luna's family. The people who had searched her camp would be back, and next time they might bring more equipment, more people, and possibly weapons. Looking into Luna's trusting golden eyes, Sarah knew there was really no choice at all. These creatures had accepted her as family, and she would do whatever it took to keep them safe, even if it meant giving up everything she had worked for in her previous life. But protecting Luna and her family was going to be much more difficult and dangerous than Sarah could have imagined, and the real test of their bond was still to come. Sarah spent the next few weeks teaching Luna and her family to be even more careful about hiding from humans. She showed them how to recognize the sounds of helicopters and vehicles from far away, and how to quickly disappear into the thick forest when danger approached. Luna was now almost fully grown, with magnificent wings that could carry her high above the forest canopy. But, despite her size and new abilities, she still preferred to sleep curled up next to Sarah every night. The bond between them had only grown stronger as Luna matured. During this time, Sarah discovered that Luna's species had remarkable abilities she had never imagined. They could communicate with each other over vast distances using sounds too low for human ears to hear. They had an incredible memory and could navigate the complex forest using mental maps passed down through generations. Most surprisingly, Sarah learned that these creatures could sense human emotions and intentions. Arya and her family had accepted Sarah because they could somehow feel that her heart was pure, that she genuinely loved Luna and wanted to protect their family. One morning, Sarah woke to find Luna acting very strangely. Instead of her usual cheerful chirping, Luna was making urgent, worried sounds. She kept flying to the cave entrance and back to Sarah, clearly trying to communicate something important. Arya and her family were also agitated. They were pacing around the cave and making those deep, warning sounds that Sarah had first heard when they met. Something was definitely wrong, but Sarah couldn't figure out what it was. Then, she heard it. The sound of many vehicles moving through the forest, much closer than before. These weren't just one or two people, this sounded like a large group with heavy equipment. Sarah's heart sank as she realized that the people who had searched her camp had returned with reinforcements. Through the cave entrance, Sarah could see helicopters circling overhead. The sound was getting louder, and she could hear the voices of many men shouting to each other as they moved through the forest. They were conducting a systematic search, and they were getting closer to the cave. Arya approached Sarah and touched her gently with her snout, then looked toward the back of the cave. Sarah understood that there must be another way out, a back entrance that the creatures used for emergencies like this. The family began moving toward the rear of the cave, and Sarah followed with Luna flying close beside her. They moved through a narrow tunnel that led deep underground, traveling for what felt like miles through a network of caves that Sarah never knew existed. Finally, they emerged from a hidden opening on the far side of the mountain, miles away from where the helicopters were searching. Sarah was exhausted, but she was amazed by how well the creatures had planned for situations like this. They had escape routes and hidden caves throughout their territory. But their problems were far from over. Over the next few days, Sarah realized that the search teams were not giving up. She could hear helicopters every day, and sometimes she saw armed men moving through the forest with tracking equipment. Sarah knew that these people were not just researchers or wildlife officials. The equipment they were using, the weapons they carried, and the systematic way they were searching suggested they were either military personnel or private contractors hired by someone with a lot of money and power. The most frightening realization was that these people seemed to know exactly what they were looking for. They weren't just hoping to find unusual animals, they had specific information about Luna's species and were determined to capture them. Sarah suspected that her stolen research notes had been analyzed by experts who understood their significance. Someone had figured out that she had discovered a new species, and they wanted those creatures for themselves, probably for study, captivity, or worse. As the search intensified, Arya made a decision that broke Sarah's heart. She approached Sarah one evening and made gentle sounds while looking at Luna. Then, she flew to Luna and began making urgent calls that clearly meant it was time for Luna to leave with her family. Sarah understood what Arya was trying to say. As long as Luna stayed close to Sarah, they were all in danger. The search teams would eventually track them down, and, when they did, they would capture not just Luna but her entire family. Luna seemed to understand her mother's message, but she flew to Sarah and pressed against her, making distressed sounds. She didn't want to leave the human who had raised her since she was a tiny hatchling. Sarah felt tears running down her face as she realized this might be goodbye forever. She hugged Luna gently, feeling the strength and warmth of the magnificent creature Luna had become. She whispered words of love and protection, hoping that Luna would remember their special bond even if they had to be apart. But Luna had other ideas. Instead of flying away with her family, she made determined sounds and settled firmly beside Sarah. Her golden eyes looked directly into Sarah's eyes, and Sarah could feel Luna's decision as clearly as if she had spoken words. Luna was choosing to stay with her human mother, no matter what dangers they faced. Arya seemed to understand Luna's choice, and, after a long moment, she made a decision that surprised Sarah. Instead of insisting that Luna leave, Arya gathered her mate and son and began making complex sounds that seemed like instructions. Sarah watched in amazement as the three adult creatures began to systematically destroy any evidence of their presence in the area. They covered their tracks, removed signs of their nests, and even used their breath to blow away scent trails that tracking dogs might follow. Then, Arya approached Sarah one final time and touched her forehead gently with her snout. Sarah felt a warm sensation, almost like a blessing or a promise. Arya was entrusting her beloved daughter to Sarah's care, but she was also making Sarah promise to keep Luna safe. After Arya and her family disappeared into the deep forest, Sarah was left alone with Luna, facing the most difficult challenge of her life. She had to find a way to keep Luna safe from the people who were hunting them, while also helping Luna live the life she deserved as a magnificent, intelligent creature. Sarah made a decision that required incredible courage. Instead of continuing to hide in the forest, she would take Luna far away, to a place where no one would think to look for them. She had a friend who owned a remote wildlife sanctuary in the mountains of Peru, someone she trusted completely. The journey to Peru was dangerous and complicated. Sarah had to use all her knowledge of animal behavior and forest survival to travel with Luna without being detected. They moved only at night, stayed hidden during the day, and avoided all human contact. Luna proved to be an excellent traveling companion. Her ability to fly allowed her to scout ahead for dangers, and her intelligence helped them navigate difficult terrain. More importantly, her loyalty to Sarah never wavered, even when the journey became difficult and frightening. After weeks of careful travel, they finally reached the sanctuary in Peru. Sarah's friend, Dr. Martinez, was shocked when he saw Luna but immediately understood the importance of keeping her safe. He provided them with a large, private enclosure hidden deep in the mountain valley, where Luna could fly and hunt while staying completely hidden from the outside world. At the sanctuary, Luna continued to grow and develop her remarkable abilities. She learned to hunt for herself, to fly incredible distances, and to use her intelligence in ways that constantly amazed Sarah. But every night, she still curled up beside Sarah, maintaining the special bond they had formed when Luna was just a tiny, helpless hatchling. Years passed peacefully at the sanctuary. Luna grew into a magnificent adult creature, powerful and graceful, with scales that shimmered like jewels and wings that could carry her higher than the mountain peaks. But, despite her size and strength, she remained gentle and loving with Sarah, treating her with the same devotion she had shown as a baby. Sarah never regretted her decision to leave her old life behind to protect Luna. She continued her research at the sanctuary, documenting Luna's behavior and abilities, but she never published her findings. Some discoveries, she realized, were too precious and dangerous to share with the world. The bond between Sarah and Luna became legendary among the few people who knew about it. Luna had indeed been born as an alpha, a leader of her species, but she had chosen love and loyalty over wild freedom. She had found in Sarah not just to protect her, but a true family member who understood and cherished her for exactly what she was. Sometimes, in the early morning hours, Sarah would watch Luna soaring high above the mountain peaks, free and magnificent against the sunrise. In those moments, she knew that she had been part of something miraculous, the kind of relationship between human and animal that legends are made of. Luna would always return to curl up beside Sarah, just as she had on that first rainy night in the Amazon jungle. Their bond had been forged in those early days when Luna was vulnerable and afraid, but it had grown into something unbreakable, a connection that proved love and trust can overcome any obstacle. The story of the ferocious alpha hatchling who chose to curl up with her human mother until morning became a testament to the power of love, loyalty, and the incredible connections that can form between species when hearts are open and intentions are pure. Sarah had given up her career, her old life, and her safety to protect Luna, but she had gained something far more valuable, a relationship that transcended the boundaries between human and animal, creating a bond that would last for the rest of their lives. In the end, Luna had indeed been a ferocious alpha, but her greatest strength was not her claws or wings or fire breath. Her greatest strength was her capacity for love, and her wisdom in recognizing that same capacity in the human woman who had cared for her from her very first day of life.